Hello, everybody. This is Marty O'Donnell. You were watching the Marty O'Donnell Show. Today is going to be a really special episode. It's episode 6, and I was able to wrangle one of my longtime friends in the game business, and we're going to talk about games again today. We're going to talk about Halo. We're going to talk about how to build studios, and we're even going to mention, at some point, we're going to mention being nice to the goose. You know, Alex and I met in Chicago when I first started doing games in '96. He was the first sort of CEO of this little startup company, which was not at the time, was not a startup. It was had been around for like 3-4 years already and had done Marathon. And then I was there to work as a freelancer on Myth, The Fallen Lords. So it's just so much fun. I've stayed friends with Alex through all the different things that he's done, and he's a successful entrepreneur, started 3 or 4 different companies, been an executive at Disney and all sorts of other companies. He's just a super interesting guy. I had a lot of fun talking to him. And so I hope you enjoy. So without further ado, here is Alex Seropian. Hello, everybody. This is the Marty O'Donnell Show. This is going to be a fun episode today, and I believe this is episode 6. So we're like well into the episodes of the Marty O'Donnell Show podcast. Before I bring my guest on, who is obviously sitting right next to me here, he is an inspiration to me, especially in the podcast space. A couple of years ago, Alex started a podcast, and I thought to myself, if Alex can do a podcast, then basically anybody can. So this is why we're here today. So it's great. Everybody, this is my good old friend, longtime compatriot. We go way, way back. Alex Seropian, who, according to the internet, is a legend. I did some research because I was trying to remember who he was. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. That's Alex.
That guy. What?
That guy. Okay, so anyway, here he is. Alex, say hello to the Marty O'Donnell Show fans and viewers here.
Hello, Marty O'Donnell Show fan. Nice to meet you.
See, you know, I got to say, the other thing you did nice on your podcast is you call it the fourth curtain. You're not as egotistical as me. Like I have to have my name in the show, as you can
thought crossed my mind. But you know, when I was in college, I would back in the days when you didn't have the internet. That was my college experience. I would paste to my door all the times I got either a piece of mail or like some takeout or anything that had my name on it, but it was horribly misspelled.
Of course.
Because you know, my name is spelled sort of like you say it, but it's not an American traditional name or whatever, so it's just butchered all the time. So, yeah, the Alex Seropian Show probably it would be horrible for SEO. So.
Well, you know, actually, I think you're famous enough that people do know how to pronounce the name, but maybe not. Maybe you still. I'm sure when you go to a restaurant or a bar, people are like, yeah, what is this ID? Because you're still being carded, I believe, right? When you go to a bar.
Yeah, right. All the time. People are they're very proud of themselves when they pronounce my name correctly. And I'm proud of them too. How are you, Marty? It's good to see you.
Good. It's good to see you.
You look like you got a suntan or something. Have you been outside?
Well, I live in Las Vegas and I do walk around. I don't know. Maybe
okay.
I think for some reason the lighting in this room always makes I look a little more ruddy than I actually am.
No, you look good. You got good color.
Thanks. Thank you. So everybody, for those of you who are tuning in today and don't know who this man is, he is the founder.
No one of consequence.
That's true. Why would you be listening to this show if you don't know who Alex Seropian is? But he is the founder of Bungie Studios. Actually, I remember this because I had to work on actually founding the real Bungie. It was called Bungie Studios, Inc., that we founded in 2007. Because what you guys had called yourself was Bungie Software. Was it Bungie Software? Yeah, I think it was Bungie Software Incorporated.
The original name, don't ask me why, it was so many words, was Bungie Software Products Corporation.
Okay, yeah. Products Corporation. Now, did you come up with products
that's what
with
on
the S?
the state of Delaware Incorporation papers?
So it was
S, yeah,
products,
there's
even
an
though you
S.
only had one at the time, or did you wait until you had a couple?
Oh no, we had ambition. Of course, there was an S on there.
It was aspirational. All right. Yeah, and I love the fact that you're well, I was looking at this thing, and you've been on a lot of different podcasts and stuff, so everybody knows your entire history. So I don't want to go over boring details that everybody knows already. But like, is it true that you were in the Phi Delta Theta fraternity? Is that a
It
true
is
thing?
true. I am a Phi Delta. Yes.
It also says you met Jason there, and he never seemed like the kind of guy that would have actually
No.
been invited to join a
No,
fraternity.
no.
He
I
wasn't?
I never saw Jason at the fraternity house. I met
Okay.
Jason in an AI class
Okay.
at the University of Chicago, where we were both undergraduate students.
Okay. And neither one of you could be computer science majors because U of C didn't even have a computer science degree at the time. It was
That's
math
right.
and yeah.
I was a math major. You could get a degree in math with a specialization in computer science, which
Okay.
I guess it wasn't really it wasn't a dual major. I probably took like 5 or 6 computer science classes, which was all they had.
Did you know, I don't know if you knew this, but did you know that I took, after I got my master's in music composition, I took 14 units of computer science at the
Really?
junior college in Pasadena.
Really?
Yeah,
Wait,
Pasadena
maybe we
City
talked about
Community
this
College.
before. I don't. What did you do? Like, what
I
did you
did
like?
Fortran and COBOL and then
Fortran.
intro to computers.
Was that on the punch cards where you'd have
Yes,
to punch
yeah.
things out? Really? I was making a joke at how old you are, but that was true. You actually used
now
punch
hang
cards.
on. This was, we didn't have to do it that way, but I think it was actually the intro to computer science, computers classes where they were like, we're going to take you back to the
Okay.
days when real men punched real punch cards and put holes in the cards.
Well,
And
that's really interesting. Like I took a class at U Chicago, which was like machine language programming, but you basically kind of learned how the hardware of a processor worked, and you'd write the instructions that were native to the chip, and you'd have to like move memory from one register to another. And I think it's the most interesting and important class I ever took, any subject, because it connected the dots between, I want to make a computer do something, to the fact that a computer is a physical device. There's a physical thing there. The chip is is switches and electricity. And today you can just get on whatever
These kids
ChatGPT
today.
and say, can you write me Tetris, but make the blocks green? And you made a program.
yeah,
But
but
did you?
did you really make anything?
did you?
That's
Yeah.
the question. I don't know. Well, I mean, the thing, I agree with you. I was kind of shocked that we were starting back on the card punch machines. I mean, it's a physical machine you go to, and you load these blank cards in, and then you type a character, a space, then becomes a card, and then capital C is a card, and you're typing out the code for your program, and then you get this deck of
You get a
cards,
stack of cards.
the stack of cards that you feed into the whatever it was that I can't even remember how that works.
We should.
they read
I
the
bet.
thing
I
and
bet that would be. We should make
compiled
one
it.
of those. We should make a
Yeah.
card-based computer again, so it's super retro for kids. They can
For
learn how to
kids.
program on cards. Yeah.
Ooh, I like that idea.
All right.
That's a real thing. You could do
Can you
that.
hold on a second so I can
Yeah,
register the URL real quick? You're out.
This is the way you are. We're going to talk about this today because this is going to be the way my mind works, which is stream of consciousness. I have no semblance of order to what I do. Let's just go to this. I met you in I believe it was 1996, probably late 96. Tuncer brought me into your office. Tuncer Denise, which was, I think he was a producer, and he was working as a producer on the new game you guys were doing, Myth: The Fallen Lords. And I already knew who you guys were because the guys at Cyan, I was working on Riven, which was the sequel to Myst. The guys at Cyan would play Marathon every day at 3:00. And I was like, okay, who are these guys? And I found out they were in Chicago. And so I immediately emailed the generic email at Bungie And it was Tuncer who answered the email, and he says, "Yeah, you should come down because we really need you. Our sound is absolutely horrible. Our music is terrible."
Hey, I gotta go. I said my
Okay.
phone's ringing. Hold on a second.
Little did I know that the CEO of this corporation, Bungie Software Products Corporation, was also the sound design and music guy. Although I think by the time you were doing Myth, you had already hired a different guy to do sound, or had somebody else doing sound, and you weren't doing sound on Myth, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
Right. Weren't you?
No, but I wasn't. You guys had already started working on Myth, and there was sound in it. There was sound. Somebody was doing, but I don't think it was you.
I think you've reached the limit of my memory capacity. That does ring a bell. I think you're talking about like sound effects, not
sound
necessarily
effects,
music.
right.
I don't think we had gotten to music yet.
No, you had not gotten to music. You hadn't really
We probably had somebody who was doing sound effects. The business had outgrown my ability to multitask in sound any longer.
And what I think is funny is that, like, you said when we had talked one other time, you had said something about, like, you were kind of ticked at Tuncer for bringing this music sound guy in to, and you were like, "Hey, what am I, chopped liver?" But what I think is interesting is that you never, in the entire time we worked together, I did not know that you had done the music to Marathon, which, by the way, the music to Marathon, the first Marathon, right? Did you do it
Yes.
to Marathon 2 also?
No, the first one.
Okay. Beloved. Like, people still love that.
I still get comments, emails, surprisingly. But yeah.
Did you see there's a guy out of England who has, his name is Luke, Hidden Xperia. He just did he went to Bungie a couple of times over the last few years to be one of the content creators to play the new Marathon. I mean, this is a very timely thing that you and I are having this little podcast, because Marathon just got announced a few days ago. The new Marathon.
It got announced a while ago, but they revealed
they
some new
actually
footage.
showed the footage and the gameplay. I mean, they really went big now. The big announcement for the Marathon.
What'd you think?
Well, no, I asked you first.
You didn't ask what I thought. Yeah,
I didn't.
I
You're right, I
think
didn't.
I asked you. I think it looks super cool.
Well, I agree with that. The look of it is just amazing, and
I'm impressed, proud, thrilled that it looks different. There's so much stuff that just looks the same. Oh, look at this! You got a shrink wrap copy of the original. Is I assume this is video, right, Marty?
Yes.
People can see what you're holding.
Well, there's also we should describe this. I'm sort of a pack rat, which, by the way, is turning out kind of cool, because I think all this stuff has way more value. Do you have one of these, the shrink wrap Marathon 1?
I think I have shrink wrap copies of everything I've ever shipped. I think.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
I think.
Because
I probably
you look
have.
like you
I
have
probably have
memories
flat
behind you.
packs too of, like,
Okay.
Those were hard to assemble.
The triangular, whatever those were, like, that was cool. Like, but it must have been difficult for the retailers to put them on the shelves, right? Those boxes.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it was.
Did they complain? Who was it?
Well,
Best Buy? No, it wasn't Best Buy. Who were you guys shipping? Who was selling games back then?
CompUSA,
that's right.
Babbage's Software, etc. A lot of mail order. Walmart was in the mix at one point, but probably not the first Marathon. The biggest retailer of Marathon was Mac Warehouse, because we ended up doing these promotions with them, where they were very, very aggressive mail order company. I think they did the most volume of any distributor for Macintosh software, at least. And we did a deal with them where basically anything you bought from Mac Warehouse, they would bundle in a copy of Marathon. It was just the disc,
Yeah. Okay.
But that was a pretty good deal. But back to the new marathon, it looks. I think it's great for the legacy of that game and the franchise. It looks different.
Oh yeah,
it's going to have its own.
You know, it's got that sort of. It has that color palette.
I have no idea how it plays. You know, nobody asked me to come play it.
Nobody asked you to come play it. Why? How could that even be? The actual father of marathon.
No, I mean, I was there in the room. Yeah, sure. I have. Do you know, like at my wedding, like we'd made these like little. You would print things out for marketing, so we made these little cards that it had that tagline, "Somewhere in the heavens they're waiting," and the officiant at my wedding pulled one out during, I think it was during the rehearsal, and read the card. You know,
what would,
like,
why would that happen?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Are they using that tagline now? Do you remember? Did you see that tagline show up?
Actually, I think I saw it in the trailer that they'd done last year. I didn't see it in the new one.
All right. Well, it was fun because I was watching the live stream, and Lars Bakken was there, who you probably don't know. Did you ever meet Lars? He worked. I think he came in about Halo 3 time period. And then another guy who came a little bit later, I think a guy named Joe Cross, who's an art guy, very super talented. They're both really talented. So to see them was encouraging to me because I know that the franchise is in good hands, and I'm looking forward to see how it plays and how it does and everything else. I'm not sure. I'm not one of those guys who even understands what extraction shooter means. I don't quite. And then there's PvPvE. Or PvEVP or whatever it is. It's like, so player versus environment versus player. Okay, I'm not sure I'm playing any games like that right now. So if I get this game, I won't be any good because I don't understand how these games work.
That's okay.
But people think I'm not good at games, but I'm actually very good at games. But I have to like the game, so that's what
I have the opposite thing. People think I'm good at games, and I'm not. It doesn't happen to me so much anymore because I think just the frame rate is better and the video cards are better. But I used to get fairly nauseous. Like I couldn't play.
Oh, interesting.
I did actually. Marathon wasn't as bad as some other games, right. But I would, after 20, 30 minutes, I'd get a little motion sick.
So you started with NOP, which was Pong, except the colors were reversed. It was white background with a black ball and paddles. For the Mac, was it because there was no Pong on the Mac? Is that why you did that, or was it just an experiment to see can you program the physics of a ping pong ball bouncing? What was your purpose for that?
It wasn't really. It was a test. Yeah, sure. It was just hey, let's see if we can make a game on the Mac.
But you gave it away for free, which is, I think you were one of the very first to do a free-to-play game. But you charged people to buy the source code. Is that right?
Yeah, there were a handful of folks who were doing that kind of model.
Okay.
Back in, when was this? Like 1990, something like that. I don't know. It was last century. Let's call it last century.
It was well into the last century. Yeah, and then did you do NOP before you met Jason, or was that after you met Jason?
Yeah, I think again, this was many years ago.
Right.
But it's at some point during college, the thought occurred to me that maybe I could be making video games as a business. Wanted to try my hand at translating programming skills to making something that I could give away or whatever. That was not. Desert Storm, Operation Desert Storm was a slightly more concerted effort, which coincided with the actual incorporation of Bungie raising enough money to actually make a retail product. And I think right around the launch of that, or maybe right after that, like I had met Jason, but a mutual friend of ours, Pete Hallenberg, who Pete actually had his own game company. He had started his own game company. I don't know if it was around this time we started Bungie, maybe a little later. But he ran that company for like 35 years in Chicago.
Oh, you're kidding.
Making games, yeah.
What games did he make?
I'd have to go look up. He did a lot of partnership projects. So he was
Okay.
It was like less like, oh, I'm going to make this original game and publish it and boom, big. More like, I think he worked on like bar trivia games. He worked on some commercial. He worked on a lot of stuff. In any case, Pete is the guy who came to me and said, "Oh, hey, we have another guy in our class who's doing games too. You should meet Jason." And I went over to Jason's dorm, and he showed me Minotaur.
Minotaur, right?
Which I was like, "Oh, this is awesome!" And he's like, "Nah, it's crap." And I'm like, "No, it's not crap. It's awesome. We should ship this." And I spent a little bit of time trying to convince him that it was worth finishing.
Yeah,
because it wasn't done. So yeah, sorry, you were asking.
Oh, who knows what I was asking.
A little bit about the chronology, but that's kind of.
So Bungie didn't really start officially. But you did ship Pathways, not Pathways, but Desert Storm, Operation Desert Storm. What was that? 91, 92, someplace in
91. There? That was my senior year of college, and that must have come out before I graduated or right around graduation. And I think Jason and I probably met like it was before I graduated, I think.
And Jason was a year younger? Because
I think it was 2 years.
Oh, 2 years? And you said, this is going to be big, forget your degree, quit school. No. Oh, okay.
No, I didn't say that. Honestly, I had a lot of guilt for... Jason and I never really talked about whether he should finish college or not. I think he was still taking classes, and at a certain point, probably in the Pathways time frame, it was a real business then.
Okay.
And I think
so you didn't say don't finish college. Jason
I don't know. I may have. I don't think so.
Well, it's funny because I told Mike Salvatore, and he had 2 kids, and I was basically newlywed. Well, we'd been married a couple of years, but I didn't have any kids. And he had a house, he had a recording studio in his house, and we had like one thing that's played on the television. And I'm like, that's it. Quit your job. Let's go into business. And somehow I convinced him to do that. So it's like, yeah, I do blame myself for Mike's entire career. But he could have had a nice,
worked out okay, right?
Yeah, it
didn't work out okay. Yeah, I think it all worked out okay for everybody.
And it worked out okay for Jason too. I think
I think it worked out pretty good.
Degree. Yeah, I think it worked out fine.
I'm sure he could get it now if he wanted. Yeah,
he could. The thing that fascinates me about you, and you and I, when we met, the first time we talked about trying to cut. I don't know. You probably will not remember this because I can tell your memory is not that good. It doesn't go back very far.
It's selective.
It's selective. And I don't think I made a big impression on you anyway, so that's fine. But I was sitting at your office because you were the man, you were the guy, you were in charge of this little company now that was pretty successful. Marathon was a successful company, and Marathon 2 was successful. I think you were working on shipping Marathon Infinity, like in '96, probably. Does that sound right to you? And then
that sounds right.
Also started the work on
on Myth, yeah.
And so I came into that, and we were trying to talk about how I would be as a freelancer for you, and I was pitching the idea that, like the movie business, you shouldn't try to build your own recording studios in your game company. You shouldn't be trying to like do it all in-house. You should be. There are a lot of different things in the film business where there are experts who they do. Graphics, and there's experts who do animations, and there's experts who do audio and sound mixing and music, and you go to them, and as a person who's making a movie, you have a core team, and then you hire out freelance or other people. That was my pitch. Like, I've got the recording studio, I'm taking that on, you should just hire me. and then you were sort of like, well, how do we buy your music, or how do we buy your work? And I'm like, well, let's talk about that. And at some point you came up with this line, which I love, which is, making games is all about creating IP and exploiting that IP. Does that sound like something you would have said?
Probably. I'm not super fond of that exploit word, but yeah, well, sure.
Well, see, the reason I remembered is because I immediately, fired back at you, and I said, "Look, I don't want to be exploited." And
it might not have been the best pitch for you. But I don't want to be exploited, but I'm happy to do the exploiting.
Yes, but what I've learned, and what I was learning at that moment was that, you didn't say exploiting the people who create IP. You said exploiting the IP. So I could see what you were saying, but I was like, okay, but let's make sure that, like, if I'm going to create IP, I want to be part of the exploiting the IP too. So I will license you what I do. And then that means by licensing it that we all make out good. I can sell it to you a little cheaper on the front end, as long as there's something that happens for me on the back end. And I didn't get any actual back end on the product, but I was able to keep the music. So the music and sound design for Myth was licensed, and that's the way you and I did our business all the way up through Halo. Which, by the way, it worked out well for me because you agreed to that. Do you remember that
welcome.
At all? Yeah,
well,
I appreciate it. I
have no recollection of anything that at all intersects with any legal conversations that may have happened in the past. But you're welcome. I think this is an important topic, Marty, because Aaron. So, by the way, listeners, I have my own podcast, so when you're bored with this one and you want to come and listen to a different one, it's called The Fourth Curtain. You mentioned it at the top. Thank you, Marty. I appreciate it.
Very kind.
But in any case, Aaron, my co-host over there, we were talking this morning about IP and AI.
Yeah,
and how we are entering and I got a little triggered this morning because I saw somebody make a post on LinkedIn where they had screenshotted a conversation between Jack Dorsey and Elon Musk in the context of IP, where Jack Dorsey made a comment about we should get rid of IP law, and Elon Musk agreed and said, I agree. And I could just picture the Rockefeller-esque top hat and monocle and screw the people. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, and if you just think about, like, you saw the whole Miyazaki meme from OpenAI a couple of weeks ago, and then and then Miyazaki himself makes a post. He's in tears about how this is an affront to humanity. I did.
Yeah, it is.
And we need something different. It's like we have this system that is supposed to be kind of self-correcting, that we call capitalism.
Right.
Which I love. I know you love it. I love it. It's treated us very well.
Yes.
But it has entered a phase where it's no longer self-regulating, and it's a little bit more kind of heading towards this negative feedback loop, which, if you're a game designer and you create something that just gets the worse you are at it, the harder it gets. Oh. Yeah, you can't win that game. No. And so what AI is doing with creativity and IP, we need a way for the folks that are making cool stuff to be a part of it, or something.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, a few years ago, it was another one of the actors, or it was a writers' strike. The Writers Guild had a strike, and movies sort of shut down for a while, where the writers were striking. And I can't remember who the writer was that was sort of representing the Writers Guild. But people were asking him, well, what is it you want? And, he was like, well, we're talking about participation in, what we've written for TV and film, and the way things are being distributed, and, like, the money we're not getting anything. And they're like, well, what's your formula? And he goes, well, the participation for the writers should be more than zero. And I'm like, yes, it's not like people are asking for that much. What they're basically saying is it should be more than zero, shouldn't it? If we're enjoying this product and it was written by a human being, it came out of this human being's head, it seems like that human being should get more than zero at some point if it's wildly successful in the future.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. Like I
don't know what the future looks like artistically either, you know, where it's like we have these systems where anybody can make anything.
Yep.
I used to pitch this. I don't know if I ever pitched this to you, Marty. It was very prescient, I'm going to say. And it was probably about 10 years ago where I realized that, we all have these cell phones.
Right.
And we all have a camera. And so we take pictures all the time. And those images are finite. There's only so many images that can be stored by a certain number of pixels, where each pixel can only be a certain number of colors, right? It's just math. You multiply how many pixels there are times how many colors you can have.
It's infinite.
Whatever. Some sort of factorial, whatever. There's a number, right?
There is a number. I see.
There's a number. So theoretically, if you looked through every picture that could ever be created, you can find every picture that could ever be taken. You want to see a picture of the Pope eating hot dogs while riding a dachshund?
You invented
it's in there.
AI. You invented.
I invented AI, and that's what. Yeah, the AI is a little better than that, I guess, but it just looks through the set of possibilities and matches patterns, and boom, there you go.
Wow, you are a brilliant person. That's amazing.
I should have been a math
sure
major,
right? It's the math thing that did it.
No,
yeah.
but what is it? I don't know. Do I sound like a curmudgeon? And
no, because what you said before is like people are making things by just typing in instructions or whatever, and it's like I look at that and I go, no, you didn't make anything. It's a computer that is taking some suggestions that you have and then searching this entire global database basically of things, like you say, pixels and colors on the pixels, and putting it together. And then what you don't get to say once you've created this little image or you created this little piece of music, or a piece of music pops out or an image pops out, you don't get to say I made that, and you could get to have copyright or intellectual property. It's not yours. It's like
it is interesting to me that like the big technological advancements that we've had the last couple of decades. Like you look at the internet and what it's used for and how it's monetized. The most successful company at monetizing the internet is Meta, and what are they using it for? For selling ads on Instagram, and Instagram is just showing me an infinite loop of. My Instagram is dogs, people cutting wood, and whatever, Sure, it's like right. Whatever it thinks will addict me to scrolling, right? That's right. That's what this technology has given us. Like, I sure hope the AI is why isn't it pointed at like curing disease? Maybe it is, I don't know, but that's what it should be pointed at. Why is it pointed at letting me make? Have you seen the video of Donald Trump pouring Cheeto dust over his face? I mean, that's pretty good. No. but the rest of, I don't know.
Well, I mean,
it's a Jurassic Park line. They are excited to build it because they could, but did they ever ask if they should?
Exactly. And I'm looking at, I would probably agree that IP laws. I mean, the thing that is always a trails advancement is legal stuff. Like the law trails everything. I mean, I think the law, people are still writing in, calligraphy documents for law stuff. So legal, laws and legality stuff never catches up with where the technology is. So I think there's probably something to be said for an outdated copyright law system. I mean, even in musical, there's this thing called mechanical royalties. It's called mechanical royalties because it's based on player piano rolls. I mean, it's like, talk about punch cards. I mean, this is like really old and it's still part of the law. So it's, I have a feeling that this stuff needs to be updated and looked at. But just to just do away with the idea that someone who is creative should have some sort of attachment to the thing they created, that can't be the end result, because I've heard you talk about, working in your wood shop and making things, and you're not trying to sell it. You're just making it for your own pleasure. Well, I think what's going to happen is creative people are just going to make stuff in their own room and never share it, because if you can't buy a hamburger because you created something, then you're just going to make it for your own pleasure, and you're never going to share stuff you created. It's not good for the future. That's the way I look at it. We got to come up with some system.
If creativity and artistry is not part of the economics of society, I think we'll see less of it, and that's a shame.
So this makes me want to ask you about this. I've done these talks, which are slightly tongue in cheek, but I talk about how there are two types of people in the world: creatives and exploiters. So, taking off on your term about exploitation. And what I believe is, like, if you're a born exploiter, if you are born with that gene that allows you to just look at things and say, how can I make money on this? That's an amazing, that's an amazing part of your DNA. That's who you are. And then, of course, I also think that then there's the other side, which are the creative people who are like, I have to create. I have no choice. I have to create. And the thing is that what people consume is some sort of a product that has to be creative. So the exploiter is completely dependent on the creator. The creator is only dependent on the exploiter to the extent that they can make a living, because an exploiter is able to say, hey, give me that thing you're making and I'll sell it, and we'll make money. Now, that's a very simplistic view of the world. It's not complete. I believe that it's incumbent upon creative people to actually learn how to exploit, to protect themselves, and to, actually figure out that there are some things you can learn. I don't believe pure exploitive people can ever learn how to be creative. I think that's a God-given, innate talent. Now, you are the exception to the rule on this. And what I've been thinking about is, like, you're not alone, I got to say, even though you're an exceptional person. I see you as being born with both sides. But what that makes you is this third type of person, which is an entrepreneur. You are probably, a born entrepreneur. You start off creative. You have creative ideas, and almost immediately that other side of your brain is like, how can I sell this? Am I oversimplifying for you, or what do you think?
I think there are some simplifications there, and there's also some vocabulary choices that
well, yeah,
that lend a little color that maybe could have some nuance. I don't know.
That's true.
I would say I agree with you that I'm a born entrepreneur. I would define entrepreneurship maybe a little bit differently than that, which is I think of myself as somebody that I can't sit still. I have to make things, and make things is creative.
Yep.
But it is also part like constructive, and when I say constructive, I use that differently than creative. Creativity can take many different forms, and sometimes it's commercial, sometimes it's not. Art is not necessarily a commercial endeavor. It is churning a feeling or an emotion or something into something that is manifest.
Mm-hmm.
Constructing is like an iterative process of building something of value, at least the way I'm using it. So I feel like I have to be creative. I feel like I have to be constructive. I feel like I can't ever really sit still. I get a lot of my own self-value out of productivity. I was really this weekend. This is a thing that I do on Saturdays. I wake up and I'm very excited on Saturdays because it's like the one day of the week I have no commitments.
Oh,
You know, like I have a schedule Monday through Friday, and I have commitments that I make on Sunday. But Saturday is my day.
wow.
And when I wake up on Saturday, I start my day by opening my notebook and making a list. And that's what gets me excited.
A list?
I'll make a list of like 10, 12 things that I'm going to do on Saturday. And it's almost all selfish things, you know? It's like, I'm going to go for a run, then I'm going in the garage and I'm putting 2 coats of varnish on the top of the blanket chest I'm making. Then I'm going to go into the office and I'm going to fix these 2 bugs in this thing that I've been working on, blah. Then I'm going to go out in the backyard and I'm going to plant the pepper plants that I bought, and I'm going to I'm going to fix the irrigation problem. There's all bullshit like that.
How long do you spend making the list? Like how much time do you allocate for the list?
It's a day-long process. I make coffee and I start the list off, and then I'm constantly checking things off, adding things to it. And if I end my Saturday exhausted on the couch after eating dinner, thinking of all the shit that I did, it's like such a great high five.
Wow.
For me. Yeah.
That is fascinating. Well, that is,
and I try to live every day that way.
Yeah.
You know, it's like like the worst possible days that I have. Well, I shouldn't say often the worst days that I have are the days where there's nothing on my calendar or nothing on my list. And I'm like, what the fuck am I supposed to be doing right now? And I hate that. I love oxygen debt. You know, it's like I can't quite keep up.
You know,
there's always more to tackle, you know?
But you're not one of those people who, like, number one on your list is make a list, right? I mean, you haven't done that yet.
I mean, no, but I have written things down on a list that I've already done. You know? Like I thought about this and I thought I need to put this on the list, you know, but on the way to the list, I did it. So I'm going to write down, check it off. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's sort of like me. I like to put things on my calendar so that I can, and I've already done something, but then I'll say, that thing I did 2 days ago.
This is my book. This is my book right here.
What book? Oh, that's the book you put your list in.
Look, that's Saturday's list right there.
Wow.
You know?
I'm very impressed. That's discipline, and that's the way your mind works, which is fascinating.
Yeah, and
but
I got through everything but 3 items on this list, and there's like 15 things on here.
So, according to AI, you are a founder of Bungie, a programmer, a designer, a producer, a sound designer, and executive for 3 decades in the game business.
Huh.
That's according to AI. I looked it up.
Okay.
I asked a question. Who is Alex? I misspelled your name. No, I'm kidding. This might be somebody else. But anyway.
I'm a father.
Yeah, it doesn't say any of those
I'm a podcast host.
That's just, you are. But you know what? It's not on there. You know what's not on there?
What?
Is that you're a composer and a musician. Now, how is that? Why are you such a shrinking violet about the music side? Because people love your music. And in high school, you were in a Duran Duran cover band.
I was. And, you know, the band had a really good name.
I know what it is.
Yeah,
but go ahead.
Rites of Passage.
Yes.
This was a buddy of mine in high school started this band, and I think the original keyboardist. I think the original keyboardist quit because their parents wanted them to study more or something. I don't know. My parents didn't care. Thanks,
but now, did you take piano lessons as a kid, or did you?
I did. I grew up taking piano lessons from Paul Scott in Dobbs Ferry, New York. He had a like a nice 1970s era Corvette Stingray, the one with like the really long hood, you know, and the great curves to it. It's like, this dude was cool. My dad grew up playing piano. My older brother was a good pianist, and my second oldest brother played guitar. He was in a band too.
3 boys in the family?
3 boys in the family, all somewhat somewhat musically inclined.
And are you the youngest?
Yes, by a wide margin. I wasn't, if my parents had a list, I don't know if they did, but if they had a list,
you were at the
I
bottom.
was like, I wasn't on the list. You know what I mean?
A bit of a surprise. Okay, got it. Now, is your oldest brother, how much older is your oldest brother than you?
Let's see, 7 and 8 years older than my two brothers.
All right. Well, that's why you got along with me. You see me as sort of like an older brother type.
Yeah.
I'm a much older brother, actually. I think,
Old man.
at one point you were thinking I was 20 years older than you, but I'm not 20 years older. I think I'm 15 years older than you guys. And that was what was fun about working for Bungie. You were the CEO. You were fresh out of college, basically, newly married. Everything you guys did was just a blast. And I'm going to ask you this too, because Bungie has always had, from the minute I met you guys and I saw your products and what you guys were making, there's always been this there's a sense of humor underneath all sorts of stuff. And I kind of believe that comes more from you, and then you attract people that have some sort of sense of humor. I think is important in everything that you've created, like with companies. Like, do you ever think about that? Do you think about when you're hiring people for your different companies, that like if they're just dull as dirt, but they're brilliant, but they're dull, like they don't have any spark on the humor side? Does that sort of, you notice that? Like, what do you think?
100%. 100%.
Okay.
I mean, well, look, what we do making video games it's just about people,
Mm-hmm.
It's like we don't have a giant casting machine in a factory, it's a group of people that relate to each other. They make a thing, and hopefully the thing it's greater than the sum of its parts. And it's relationships to talent. Yes, talent is definitely important, but really where the magic comes from is that back and forth, and that creativity, commercial creativity. I think any creativity, just creativity, is an output of a process. It's iteration. You do something and you learn from it, or you like it, or you don't like it, and then you do something again and it's different, and hopefully it's better, or it's more like your vision, or you take a step forward. We're always trying to take steps forward. And in a team effort like this, and I think it's probably the same in sports, team sports, anything where you've got a group of people, you take iterative steps every time you have a conversation. And if you don't get along well, if you don't vibe, if you don't have a groove, those steps are small steps. Sometimes maybe they're backward steps or sideways steps. But when a team really gets along, where you can complete each other's sentences, where you can relate, where you can empathize, where you can hear an idea that you would never have thought of, and your reaction to it isn't, that's dumb. Your reaction to it is, that's dumb, but wait, that's actually cool.
There's a part. Yeah.
Then your team has like the superpower, and sense of humor, I think, is part of that, because you have to be able to laugh with each other and at yourself, and you need to be humble in order for those creative ideas to take root and for them to grow. So
and so I mean, one of the first things I learned was that the name Bungie is the punchline to a joke, which we won't get into. But you had different mottos, like "Don't make us kick your ass," kill your enemies, kill your friends' enemies.
I cringe about that. The "Don't make us kick your ass" T-shirt. I found one of those in my basement like a year ago, and I looked at it and I kind of cringed a little bit.
Well, there's
at the time it was amazing. I think right now
I
probably get beat up.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I've always thought I really enjoyed. You guys did not take yourself so seriously.
We did not take ourselves too seriously.
You were deadly serious, but there was always this, undercurrent of humor and hey, you know,
Well,
if
I
you take
learned
yourself
very
seriously,
quickly.
failure is horrible. But if you don't take yourself that seriously, then failure is definitely just a way of learning how to do better next time.
Exactly. I learned very quickly from going to Macworld, from going to the trade shows, that the people you're making games for people, and hey, here they are, and I'm having a conversation with you, and you're telling me stuff, and we're forming a relationship, and you can't take yourself too seriously, you know?
All right, so we're going to fast forward really quick because I got a couple of things that I have to get into this conversation. One is the marathon was a milestone. Obviously, it really propelled you guys way forward on in the industry. Myth was another. I thought it was a great game. It had a great following, and then we started working, and I was freelancer. We started working on Halo. And in 1999, speaking of Macworld, we got that opportunity to show Halo to the world for the first time. And it was a panic. It was a last minute thing. And we've talked about this before, but I have to play. I was up most of the, yeah, you know what I'm going to play. I was up most of the weekend working on this thing, got it to you guys Monday morning. You guys got on a plane. And then I went to sleep at my house after handing you and Jason. I handed it to Jason, the CD of the music.
No, you handed it to Jason, and we'll understand what happened
Yeah.
in a second. I'm
So
sure.
I'm going to play this now. We will put this in post production, but I want you to hear it as it comes off this. This is the phone message that I got after killing. We were all killing ourselves to get this so you could all be in New York for Steve Jobs the next morning dress rehearsal for Macworld.
Hey Marty, it's Alexander at Bungie. I left you a message on your cell phone. The guys busted one of the music CDs. I don't know how many you gave them, but Joe called in a panic asking if there's any chance you could overnight another music CD to their hotel. And I think if that's going to work, they're going to need to get it tomorrow, which means it's going to have to go out tonight, and it's already 7:30, so I don't know if it's possible. But if it is, I'm going to leave you the address of their hotel. I left you the same message on your other phone. I'll try calling you back in a half an hour or so, see if I can't get you. But if you can get another CD to them, that would be awesome. Thanks. Bye.
All right, I got to say two things. Thing one, I identified myself as Alexander.
Yeah, which is
Bungie,
interesting.
which I've been going by Alex for as long as I can remember. So that's just interesting. That must have meant I was a little amped,
embarrassed?
I guess. I don't know. The other thing is, like, why was I so fucking calm? I should have been like losing my goddamn mind.
I know. And then at the end, you're like, "Yeah, it's so it's already 7:30."
Yeah, it'd be nice. It'd be nice.
So,
I'll call you in half an hour. Yeah. What the hell? I'd fire that guy on the spot. It's like, get in your car and drive to Marty's house.
I don't need, at that moment, I don't think he knew where I lived. We were out in Wheaton, so we were like an hour outside of Chicago.
Yeah, you wouldn't tell anybody where you lived. That was smart.
That's true.
Yeah, and this was like, so wait, this was
99.
99. So I guess we had internet, but there was no concept of put it on a Dropbox.
The
You see,
the
kids,
idea.
what it was like back in the day. This required. Didn't Mike have to like take a CD to the airport to get it?
No, I did. Mike is the
You
one who
did,
had the
okay.
other. We made 2 CDs, but back then, it took time to burn a CD. It wasn't
That's
just like
right.
instantaneous copying of digital stuff. So, and it was Red Book Audio, which means it was high. It was 16-bit 44.1 music on a CD.
Yeah, it's not that
And,
impressive
so
today, though.
I
what was
know,
that?
I
What was
know.
that file?
But
100 megs, maybe? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Well, let's see, 10 megs per stereo minute. It was probably under 40 megs.
Yeah.
So I
Burned
had
so much
to-
jet fuel getting that to New York. It's
Yes.
horrible.
What the funny thing for me was, we were so late recording on Monday, that we mixed it, and I told the guy, burn a CD, and then I ran over to Bungie and gave you guys the CD because you were holding a cab to get into the, to get to the airport to fly to New York. And when I was leaving, I said, hey, Mike, make sure they burn another CD so we have one. And so that was it. So then I wake up at 7:30 and I call Mike and I'm like, I need that other CD like now. We met in a parking lot. He handed it to me. And then I rushed to the airport. The FedEx, I'd done this a couple of times. Working on Riven, I had gone to the airport late at night to go directly to the FedEx, counter, which is a different part of the airport. Get the last flight out to New York, and then it all worked out. But yeah, I mean, I don't think people realize like how tenuous some of these things could have been. Like if I had just slept through your phone, I mean, I did sleep through your phone call. That's why you left me a voicemail. Your voicemail was at 7:30.
Did you get the voicemail, or did I probably called you back, didn't I? Did we talk live?
You did, but I was already in the process of. Yeah.
You see,
but
look,
remember,
Marty, I'm
this
the kind
is
of guy that makes all these lists. I was calling you over and over again. I'm sure that was the only message I left.
That was the only message, and that was back. I don't think if I had a cell phone in 99, it wasn't cell phones. They would have just been
like a flip phone.
Maybe there was there cell phones in 99?
I think we had flip phones. I think we must have had
my
flip phones.
My voicemail was on my home machine, right? It was on you called my house, right? There was not like, yeah. I mean, people don't realize we were scrappy people back then doing stuff.
Hustling. I mean, you know what it is when you have your own shop. You got to hustle. You got to do all the things. You got to go to the airport at 8:00 at night to drop off the CD. We have new versions of that today, but I love that. Thank you for sharing the message. I love that we made shit happen. Like we punched so far above our weight.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you guys were always. We've talked about this before, but you were always punching above your weight. But you never acted like it. You guys acted like, of course we deserve to be here. We deserve to be even better than where we are. We'll go ahead and we'll do Macworld, but we could do better if we wanted to. That's just you had this great attitude that I loved. So
I don't know. That sounds like a little cocky.
I gotta
but
say,
okay.
Yeah, you were definitely a little cocky, which I loved. But we're going to talk about something else, and maybe this is not quite as there were some problems, right? And so the people know why you needed money after Myth 2 shipped with a bug, but we won't get into all the reasons why Bungie needed money. But Halo was very exciting to the game industry, and somehow we attracted Microsoft and the Xbox, and it'd be a launch title for the Xbox. And our good friend Peter Tamte helped sort of negotiate or bring those things together. He introduced you to being able to do Macworld with Steve Jobs, and then later it was like, well, maybe Microsoft and the Xbox would be interesting. I don't know all the details. You can go into it. But I got to say, I did find part of a documentary, which we're going to play now, which maybe diffuses some of the myth of, Bungie being purchased by Microsoft and the tough negotiations that you did. So we're just going to look at this now. This happened after we were at Microsoft, and it was I think it was after we shipped Halo 1, but this documentary was made. So we're going to play that now.
Listeners, when I retired from Bungie, I was blessed with a roast. And that was a fun evening.
Yes, and you are correct. When we show this in my podcast, unless some legal thing ends up happening before it happens.
Oh, that never happens with you, Marty.
Yeah, not with me. Are you kidding? Legal problems with me? Never. this will be the first time the public has seen any part of this particular documentary. I'm not sure we will ever share the remainder of it, but I thought this part was relatively safe. Well, this is the other thing I want to talk to you about is like I have a saying that I didn't come up with this saying until after you had left. And by the way, let's just clarify this. You left almost a year to the day. Am I right? After we shipped Halo 1? When you left Bungie?
Was it? Maybe.
Well,
it might,
see,
it,
in
it
my
might,
head,
it may have been. I mean, my recollection of the timing is we had shipped Halo, and it was very successful. We were well on our way to Halo 2, and Laura got pregnant, and she was ready to come back to Chicago. And I think that was right around the end of 02, beginning of 03, that time frame.
Yeah. So, which is almost basically a year.
Basically a year after. Yeah.
And the rumor around Bungie was that the contract that you, Alex Seropian, had signed with Microsoft was that you basically had to agree to stay for at least a year after Halo 1 shipped. That was what the rumor was. Do you confirm or deny that part of the contract?
Well, like any acquisition, the founders usually have some incentives to stick around, and my incentives for being at Microsoft were twofold. I mean, there was a contractual obligation to fulfill, but there was also a personal obligation to Jason and the team and the studio to make sure that we had established a footing that was that preserved the future of the studio. So, well, at that point, I was ready to go have family. Thanks, Marty. Thank you.
Well, it's funny. I also thought, and you and I had talked during the producing Halo 1, and we talked after Halo 1, and we were at all the different events, and it was a blast. It was a real magical time. But I did get the sense from you, at least the way I remember it, is that the position you were in inside Microsoft was not really where you saw your future as an entrepreneur. Like you weren't getting that, that itch scratched, right? Like at Microsoft, you were leading the team at Bungie as the studio head, and then you had to go sit in this sort of middle management executive layer of Microsoft Game Studios. And I got the sense that you just were like, this is not the position you want to remain. So was it a draw to like take some time off and start your family, or was there also like, I need to be doing something different?
Probably both. I mean, you're not wrong. I think there's definitely an element of like seeing like a big company that you can kind of see your future. And for a person like me, that's a little scary because like I showed you my lists and just the hustle and the construction, the building, a lot of that's predicated on trying to go somewhere that either no one's been before or, trying to figure something new out. And it's different. It's different. It's different than being successful in a corporate environment. And don't get me wrong, everybody at Microsoft were maybe not everybody, but most people were excellent people.
Well, you know me, I will never speak poorly of Microsoft ever. It's just against my...
That's a legal obligation. I'm saying personally, like, I really like Ed.
Yes.
I liked him then. I like him now.
Yes, I will never speak.
Exactly.
Bad
document. But the idea, I mean, what did I do? I went back. I had a kid, and then eventually I was like, "Oh, I'm going to start something new." And I tried to iterate the idea forward. Yeah. Okay, the studio's going to be a little different.
And you were smart because you also had I think you were the only studio that was going to be able to be allowed to use the Halo engine on a brand new IP, which I think was brilliant because Stubbs the Zombie is still one of the most underrated and fun and funny and fun to play. It's just an amazingly creative game. I wish it's not like I want to see it remade or anything, because
They did
I sort of
remake
don't
it like last
What?
year. They did a remaster for the Switch. That's
Oh,
where
you are kidding me.
where this bust of Stubbs actually comes out of the box set that
Are
Aspire
you
shipped
telling me I
last
can
year.
go right now and download it for the Switch?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm going to do that, because
There you
some
go.
of my favorite game moments are happening in Stubbs the Zombie. That was a brilliant game. Well, the marketing on the remake for the Switch was not strong enough for me to be aware of it.
wasn't loud enough.
You
Well,
gotta-
I know I don't. We're probably running out of time, but the interesting story on the engine was that I got a call from a team in Austin who called me up and said, "Hey, we're making a game with the Halo engine, and we wanted some advice." And you probably know Patrick Curry, but this was Patrick Curry.
Okay, I know the name. Yeah.
Yeah, and he had gotten, because Take-Two ended up with a couple engine licenses, so he had gotten one of those.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, and so I called up Mike Wilson over, who was at Take-Two at the time, and said, "Hey, could we use the other one for this game that we're doing?" And he said, yeah. And then that deal with Take-Two didn't actually get signed, so I ended up calling Jason and Harold saying, "Hey, would you let me use the engine?" So I ended up licensing it straight from Bungie, even though like Take-Two had a license that they were going to give me, but then they didn't give me. So it was like this weird sort of roundabout.
Oh, see, I always thought you had it into your original contract for you personally.
Oh,
so.
no, it wasn't that smart. No.
It sounds like something you would have put on your list, though. That's what I was thinking. All right. All right. But the last thing I want to talk about before you go, because I really appreciate, I know we're over an hour, but my show is a little loose. It's not as, your show is very strict, 1 hour out.
I wish.
So I think after you left, I came up with this concept of looking at the fable about the goose that lays the golden egg. And so I've always thought the problem
You came up
with
with that fable?
Yeah, I did. But here's what I came up with. Dang it. I came up with the idea that most people think that the moral of the story is like, don't kill the goose that lays the golden egg. And what I think the moral is that if you want more golden eggs, be nice to the goose. And I've always felt like
So
the
more than
goose
don't
is-
kill the goose, actually
Yes.
be nice to the goose.
Be nice to the goose, and you will get more golden eggs. So what happens is, and I stretch the analogy way too far, which is what I tend to do. But like, there are lots of geese out there, right? But you look for the geese that lays the golden egg, because if you have to look at their eggs to find out, like, oh, that's a goose that lays golden eggs. They don't look different than other geese, and if you're nice to it, you'll get more golden eggs. That's the thing. And I feel like executives and corporations look at teams that have done something spectacular, and what they focus on is the golden egg rather than the team that laid the golden egg. And I feel like I've seen that over and over and over again, and they neglect the team. They're no longer nice to the team, but they think the most important thing is the golden egg. So they end up trying to just make another golden egg, and they don't think it matters what sort of team they have, and they discount the goose. Very, it's a convoluted metaphor that I
have
tend to
a
use. But anyway,
have a
be nice to
different
the
phrase.
goose is my local.
Which is similar, which is the team is the project. You know.
Yeah.
So
I've heard you say that, and I think that's
it's
really
like,
good.
What it's my approach with building a company or building a studio is to try to attract the best people, try to instill a healthy, great culture. Make the team healthy and great, and the team will do great things. And that's not easy to do. It's not easy to do.
Well, my last example for you that I want to get your opinion on is: have you watched the original movie with Charlton Heston called Ben-Hur? Remember that movie?
I do remember it, and it's been I'm not sure I've seen the
Even
whole
more
thing.
years.
It was one of those like was on like a Saturday TV special thing. Probably watched half of it. Yeah.
So there's a scene in there where
Is that the one
Charlton
with the
Heston.
chariot race? You know.
Yes. So we're going to talk about the chariot race. There's a great scene that is burned into my head because I think it's such a great lesson. Charlton Heston is, he's the chariot driver. He's got 5 beautiful Arab stallions, Arabian stallions, and he's practicing around this track, and there's this old Arab guy sitting there looking at him, with a big gray beard, and things aren't going well for old Ben-Hur, and so the Arab guy motions him over, and he goes, "You have a great team, but you have to understand the personalities of your horses. You've got the horses in the wrong position. This one wants to do this, so you need to put it on the inside. This one needs to do this, so you got to put it on the outside." And it's talking about the way you build a team and the way you look at the people that you have. You can have a lot of talented people, but if they're just not in the right positions, you won't have the success you have. So there's got to be a way for you as a leader of teams where you periodically must sort of look at things, and you're like that old Arab horseman, right? You're looking out there and saying, "Oh, I got to move some things around." Does that mean anything to you? Do you understand what I mean by that? Have you ever done that on your team where you're just like, "You know what? I got this guy is good, but he needs to be here, and the other guy is good, but he needs to be there."
I'll tell you, I think there is. I understand and relate to that example. I think there is a mature approach that is like that. I think what we see in business far too often is somebody is given an opportunity to do something. Maybe they don't do well at it, and then they're fired. And if you look at the culture that modern American business seems to glorify, like the Teslas and the SpaceXs and Elon Musk's approach to walking into Twitter's lobby with a kitchen sink and saying everything must go, it's like completely disrespectful and does not value people at all and treats them as disposable cogs, in a machine. That's the opposite. So yeah, and I've been guilty of in the past of trying things and they weren't successful, and well, okay, well, that's on you. So you're not part of this anymore. And those are some of the things that I regret most, probably, or at least have burned lessons into my psyche. And I run things differently now than I did when I was younger. The studio that I have now is really interesting because the projects we work on they're small and they're fast. We can go through a complete cycle of idea to shipped product in like 3 months, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, which means we can try a lot of things. And try a lot of things is not just, oh, let's try this game idea or let's try this piece of code. It might also, let's try letting this person run the show and see what happens, give them an opportunity. And it might work well, it might not. We might be like, oh, you know what? We should configure things with a team that looks more like this next time. So we're constantly learning. And I think that kind of learning applies not just to like how you execute like technically, but also how you execute, personnel wise. So yeah, Arab horse trainer, I guess. Sure. Yeah. I got a little bit of that in my backstory, I guess. Sure.
Do. Well, yeah, because you got that Armenian something going on there. So this has been great, Alex, and I feel like we just sort of scratched the surface. We didn't talk about all the different companies.
Kind of therapeutic, Marty. I mean, I feel like I should be paying you for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yes, I'm expecting a check. By the way, I don't know if you knew that, but
I don't know. You should be writing me a check. I think just to be
that is
for
true.
Karma's sake. Maybe I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I mean, we both had the game industry has been very, very good to us, and I'm glad we met, and I'm glad we worked together, and I'm glad we're still friends because that's super valuable. And thank you so much for coming on the show today. And good luck
Thanks for
to
the
your
invite.
future endeavor. All right,
Likewise.
you got it.
All right.
See you, everybody.